Happy New Year, everyone! Welcome to 2023. Welcome to my channel. If the algorithm brought you here for the first time because you're watching a lot of favorites of 2022 videos, welcome. My name is Megan. I'm a teacher, I'm a reader, and I like to talk about the books that I've read. So 2022 was a pretty good reading year for me. I read 50 books. And today I'm going to tell you my top 10 favorites out of those 50. I'm mostly gonna go by month. Obviously there's 12 months in a year, so a couple of the months I'm just gonna squish together and we'll come up with my top 10. So as you watch, go ahead and leave a comment and tell me what some of your favorite books of the year were. It's always so hard for me to just choose one, but if you let me choose a few, then I'm okay. So we're gonna take a look here. Maybe grab your coffee too. And we're gonna look at these graphics that I spent way too much time making the other day. And this is how I'll make my decisions. Okay, so January, I read 5 books. I liked all of these, really. January got me off to a good start. I'm going to choose Anxious People as my favorite one. I think something that was really fun about reading this book was that I also was watching the series at the same time. So I was just kind of going back and forth, and the series portrays the story a little bit differently. They kind of highlight and then don't highlight a few characters differently from the way that the book does it, but I thought the plot and the characters in both were so engaging, so entertaining, and then it really makes you think as well. This is the first Friedrich Bachmann book that I have read, but I liked it a lot, and I read a little bit more of him, and I want to continue reading more of his books. So honorable mention though goes to Aquacorn Cove. I got all of these graphic novels for my classroom because they are just so incredibly beautiful, and the experience of reading them is just so wonderful and comforting and different from reading, just a regular book that's all text, but also really different from most graphic novels. I love the characters and the color scheme and the whimsy of it. So I also really recommend Aquacorn Cove as well as the other Tea Dragon Society books that are written by the same author. Moving on to February, oh my gosh, this was a great month of reading. There's the Tea Dragon Society. Oh my gosh. All 3 of these novels were excellent. I also watched the series of My Brilliant Friend as I read this, and then watched the series of Station 11 right after I read that book. Again, both of those series are amazingly well done. Oh my gosh, I don't even know how I choose because I Must Betray You is so good, and it's set in Romania, and I've been to a lot of the places that they talk about in the book. Oh my gosh. Okay, I think this is probably going to be the hardest decision for the year, but I think I'm gonna go with Station 11. It was just very different. The premise was something that I thought I wouldn't like. I really didn't want to read about a pandemic at all. And I don't usually like survival stories, but this one was good. It is really beautiful. And I might be kind of mixing it in with the series, which again was kind of done differently. The book is very Canadian, and then the series took out all mentions of Canada. I don't know why they felt that was necessary, but I really enjoyed both. And I think actually the combination of the series and the book is probably why I liked it so much. But yes, let's go with that one. Although I have a whole video about all the Ruta Sepetys books, and I highly recommend those as well. So go watch that one. Oh my goodness, March was another amazing month of reading. All 4 of these books are excellent. Another Friedrich Bachmann book with a movie based on the book. And now there's an American version of the movie that's coming out with Tom Hanks. And so I'll just triple up. I'm probably gonna watch that as well. All of these books were some of my favorites of the year, but what I'm actually gonna do with this month of March is donate my favorite book to the month of April so that I can pick 2 from April. I mean, look at April. Look at all of these books. So I'm going to choose 2. My 2 favorites were A Long Petal of the Sea by Isabel Allende and Unlikely Animals by Annie Hartnett. A Long Petal of the Sea is just my favorite type of historical fiction. It starts off in Spain during the Spanish Civil War, and then the main characters come to Chile. Pablo Neruda helps facilitate Spanish refugees and then it covers their lives there, and it's just really epic, so good. I learned so much about Chilean history and Spanish history, and I absolutely loved it. That one has to be in my favorites, and I want to read more, Isabel Allende. And then Unlikely Animals was just so good by Annie Hartnett. I need to read more of her work as well. This one kind of reminded me of We Ride Upon Sticks, which is another one of my favorite books, where it's like magical realism set in this kind of like small town. There's something weird going on. Characters are just really endearing. Oh, also like collective narration. So there's like a graveyard full of ghosts that is narrating this book, kind of like in We Ride Upon Sticks, where like the whole team narrates the book. So I loved this one as well. So yeah, I need 2 books for the month of April. Okay, May was the month where I read the most books in the year. Let's see, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So out of these 7 books, I think I'm gonna go with Take My Hand. I think Take My Hand was my favorite. Again, it's historical fiction. It's set in the South. It has a lot to say about reproductive rights and that double burden of not having bodily autonomy as a woman, and then especially as a Black woman and a young Black woman in the South. And this is not like ancient history. This is set during the 70s. This book would be perfect for like a book club. I think it would generate so much interesting discussion. So I loved that one. And I have to give honorable mention to Where the Deer and the Antelope Play. This Nick Offerman book was excellent, and I listened to it on audiobook, and so I think I want to listen to more of his stuff on audiobook. I do need to get this one in print though, because he had a lot to say about nature and the outdoors, and then also about Native American mascots. There was a whole section on that. And I want to use some of those excerpts in a nature unit that I do with my 7th grade English classes, so I need to get this one in print. I read a bunch more Ruta Sepetys because I love her, and then another honorable mention to The Ghost of Rose Hill. So good, it's become a favorite in my classroom. Okay, June and July I'm gonna put together. June I only read 4, July I only read 2, so let's just pick from this bunch of 6. The hard thing about this one is that I think the most important book is On Tyranny by Timothy Snyder. I just think everybody should read that book. So that one's just like in a category all its own. I've read the pamphlet version. This was the graphic novel version. Also this year I've been watching his lectures that he gives at Yale. Last semester he taught a class on Ukrainian history, and so there are 23 videos on YouTube altogether. That's like the course of the class, and I'm on class number 19, I think. So I just have a little ways to go to finish it. I recommend that, you know, maybe over like any other history book if you want to learn a ton about Ukraine and Russia and just Eastern Europe, World War II, Vikings. I mean, it like starts from way back and then takes us all the way to the present day. So that whole course is amazing, and it's just free on YouTube. You can watch the whole thing, and you can find the readings and like the syllabus and everything on Timothy Snyder's Substack. So I love that, and I think it's amazing that we can all like have access to this very elite institution and learn from one of the best scholars in the world. But book-wise, I am going to go with Trust by Hernan Diaz. This book is so weird. It's like 4 books all together. And at first it's kind of hard to see how they tie together. And they're all written in really different voices because they're like different styles of books. They have different authors, they have different purposes, they were written during different times. And it's just so interesting how it all wraps up. It's a little bit hard to follow as you go through it, but then in the end it comes together and it's just like pretty mind-blowing. I just read, like I finished it a few minutes ago, one of Hernan Diaz's previous books. And again, like following it was a little, you kind of had to trust him that he knew where he was going. And it does not really wrap up the same way. I read Into the Distance. I did not like that one as much, but I still really liked Trust. So I'm gonna choose Trust for June and July. Okay, we're also going to combine August and September. I only read 1 in September. That was like the height of going back to work and then everybody getting sick and being out, and I had like a whole issue with my daughter's daycare, and that was a rough time. So August was a little bit better of a reading month, and my favorite from these was Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany D. Jackson. I read this book in a day. I stayed up until like 3 in the morning to finish it because I had to know what happened to Monday. In the beginning of the book, we find out that she's missing and her best friend is looking for her, and no one else seems all that concerned, and you have to know. Like, I don't know how anyone puts this book down. Like, I literally could not sleep until I found out what happened. And I do have to warn you, once you find out what happens to her, you can never unknow it. So this book is really intense. It's really sad, but really important, I think. It is a YA book. I think it would be heavy for most middle schoolers. I mean, it's appropriate for a high school classroom, but still like quite heavy. And then even for adults, it's just like a lot, but so well written and just so engaging that you have to keep reading. And if you do read it, pay attention to the structure when they talk about like before the before or like after the before. I forget exactly how they describe it like at the beginning of the chapters, but try to follow along with that a little bit just to piece things together. You'll find out in the end what that means. Okay, moving into October. We'll make this its own. Ooh, October was a really good month as well. For my classroom, I definitely loved Eliza and Her Monsters and Seven Voyages. Seven Voyages is so good. It's such a good nonfiction historical text. But my favorite one, I think I'm gonna go with Celeste Ng's new book, Our Missing Hearts. I despise the cover. I do not like it. Don't like how it looks at all. Look at the other pretty ones, besides Audacity. Audacity doesn't have a good cover either. But let's forget about the cover for a minute. It's so good. I just think that it's going to be a classic. Like, I think it's one of those books like Fahrenheit 451, 1984, The Handmaid's Tale. Like, it's one of those like dystopian, a little bit science fiction-y, not really science fiction-y, I guess. Sometimes there's a fine line between those two. But this one specifically deals with the concept of race, which I think you could critique a lot of these other like dystopian classics for like not addressing race at all. Like, of course that would come into play. The government also utilizes just that like visceral fear of having your children taken from you, which our government has used throughout our history in order to get people to comply and as a tool of oppression. And so weaving in those things is genius, but also just makes sense. So Celeste Ng is great, and this book is no exception. I highly recommend it. I have a feeling that like our students will be reading it in high school or maybe as like college freshmen or something as required reading, unless we follow the path that this book actually takes. Okay, November only had 3 books, but they are all so good. This is actually a pretty tough decision, but I'm going with Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. Of course, I always get the Hamilton tune stuck in my head, which is of course based on Macbeth by Shakespeare, and then this title as well is a reference to Shakespeare. This book is about so much. It's about these video game designers who start creating these video games in like the 90s, and then it follows their careers for a couple of decades. But even as they're creating video games, that is about story, it's about art, it's about design, and it's about creating utopias where you can experience something that you don't get to experience in this world. One of the characters got in a car accident when he was younger, and his foot is just always in pain. It was shattered, so he has this disability. And in video games, you can have all of these abilities that you don't have in real life. And so as somebody who, you know, is a teacher and works with kids, and then even my own 6-year-old is starting to get really into video games, but I was never all that into games. This gave me a window into the magic of games and the beauty of games and what it's like to like have some control in one area and live a story that you don't get to live in real life. So It's just such a beautiful book. It's probably one that I would read again, and I highly, highly recommend it. Okay, for December, all of these were really good as well. I think The Black Kids was my favorite YA historical fiction of the year. So that one's definitely going in my classroom. It's more appropriate for high schoolers. So it's one where, you know, I could get like parent permission if a kid wants to check that one out, but it's so good. It's about Los Angeles during the LA riots of 1992. Yay, the garbage truck. So that one was really good, but I have to say my favorite was Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. Oh my goodness, this book is amazing. It has everything. It's also historical fiction. It has multiple settings. It's set in the Caribbean, probably Jamaica, they just never say it, and then the UK, and then Orange County, like Anaheim area. You see the impact of like Chinese immigration in the Caribbean. You see the impact of an influx of Caribbean, like highly skilled, low wage workers to the UK. There's a section in there about like the history of food, which is really, really interesting. There's so much about like science and oceanography, swimming. Swimming is like its own theme throughout the book, and like specifically like Black people swimming, like Black people in the ocean. It's another one that I read basically in one shot because I was traveling when I picked it up. I got it at an airport, and just over the course of my flights, I could not put it down. It's so good. I loved the characters. I loved the family dynamics. I loved the twists in the story. Amazingly beautiful and well done. I love it so much. So here we have my top 10 of 2022. Let me know if you read any of these this year. Which of them were your favorites? Were there any that I didn't pick on a certain list that you think that one should have been above the one that I chose? Sometimes it's hard to choose, but I'm just kind of going off of like the impression that they left on me. Like even if I read it a few months ago, like which one just like makes me the happiest or like had the most impact on me looking back at it now. My reading goal for 2023 is to not buy any books. So rather than have a number goal, I just am going to try not to buy any books. I get so sucked in like on YouTube and Instagram and like seeing all the books that everybody else is reading and seeing the new releases that have come out, but then I buy more than I can read. So I have a lot of books in this room that I haven't read, so I need to read through those. The library has free books. I think I'll still get my audiobooks from, I do like Libro FM. Maybe I'll allow myself those. I even have a few audiobooks still though to listen to. So I won't buy anything new until I've listened to what I have. So yeah, I have kind of a different reading goal for this year. I want to do a bookshelf tour. It's been a while since I said I was going to do that, so maybe that'll be like the next book content that I do, and then like, I don't know, the books that I want to read for 2023. I'll just show you all I've looked at so far for 2023. This is the one that I just finished, In the Distance, by the same author who wrote Trust. Didn't love this one. I'll probably be donating it. I don't see any reason to keep it. And then I did buy one book before I made the resolution not to buy any books, because I've never actually read this one. When did this come out? Really? 1973. Oh, I didn't know that. I hadn't really heard of it until it ended up on all these banned book lists. So this is the complete book. I guess there are a couple of volumes. It's a lot longer than I thought, and it has a lot more rudimentary drawings than I thought. But I'm really interested to read this one. So I've got this, I've got plenty of others. I'm gonna try not to take in very many book recommendations just so that I can get through what I have and maybe kind of do a little bit of purging as well. So thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to 2023. I hope you have a happy new year. Bye.